October light sliced my kitchen into bright rectangles. I had the sports page open, coffee cooling beside my plate when my daughter stepped into the doorway like a headline. "Dad, I have a surprise for you," she said. Her name is Lena. 35. Quick, organized, and lately too practiced at sounding cheerful when she's worried. Behind her stood Caleb, my son-in-law, leaning on the counter as if he'd paid for it. He gave me a polite nod that felt closer to a smirk. "What kind of surprise?" I asked. Lena lifted a thick manila envelope. There was a downtown law firm on the flap I didn't recognize. Her smile held for a beat, then trembled. "Just open it." I set the paper down, wiped my fingers, and took the envelope. It had weight, the kind that means signatures and deadlines. The seam tore. Paper slid onto the table, letterhead, tidy columns, balances in red, and at the bottom of every page, my name in a familiar hand. Caleb's tone turned managerial. "We thought it best to handle this first thing, Mr. Turner," I read. Credit card statements I'd never seen, loan applications from banks I don't use, casino markers from places I haven't visited in years. In the middle of the first page circled $400,000. The signatures were mine, not similar mine. The long J I dragged too far, write the T in Turner that always climbs even the tiny hitch where I press too hard. My stomach went hollow. "What is this?" I asked. "Your debts?" Lena said, the brightness gone. "We found the file when we helped you organize last month. It must have been mixed in with insurance and taxes." "I don't have gambling debts," I said. "I never have." Caleb stepped closer, palms open, in a performance of reason. "Memory can be tricky, sir. These are formal instruments. They reference your number, your address, your signature. Timelines are tight." "How tight?" "Payment due today," he said. "If we don't make a good faith transfer, liens could hit the property. They can seize the car. The house is exposed. We already drew up a plan, sell what we can and call creditors." "The house," I said. "You mean my home?" "Technically yours," he replied lightly. "But Lena has covered the property tax and roof repairs. We're already entangled. We can negotiate if we move funds now. We'll need access to your accounts." Lena reached across and touched my hand, careful and rehearsed. "Dad, please, let us handle this. It's the only way to keep you safe." I slid my hand away. Family doesn't forge signatures. She flinched. "You think I did this?" "I think someone did," I said, "and whoever did it knew exactly where I keep my documents." Caleb raised his brows. "So dozens of institutions accepted forgeries for 6 months, sir. That isn't how the world works." I lifted a page to the light. Every loop and pressure point looked like mine. A person living inside your house could learn that hand. A person with motive would try. "My answer is no," I said. The refrigerator hummed. A dog barked down the street. The room tightened. Lena's voice sharpened. "We came here to save you. We've been losing sleep while you pretend nothing's wrong." I kept my tone even. "You moved my tools and called it helping. You ate my food and called it family. You sold a food truck after 3 weeks and called it protecting my savings. Now you want the deed." Caleb tilted his head. "If you refuse responsibility, consequences follow. That's not a threat. That's procedure." Lena spun toward the counter and grabbed the glass coffee pot. Steam curled off the surface. 35 years I've been your daughter," she said, turning back, knuckles white on the handle. 35 years of cleaning up your stubbornness while you act like you never make mistakes." "Lena," I said, level, "put the pot down. Not until you admit this is your fault." The coffee moved one dark arc through bright air. Reflex lifted my arms, but heat slammed into my chest, wicked through flannel, and bit hard. The breath went out of me. I pulled the shirt off the raw spots and tasted metal. It smelled like scorched cotton and fresh brew. For a heartbeat, Lena looked stunned by her own hands. Caleb did not. Satisfaction flickered across his face before he smoothed it away. "Get out," he said, quiet as a door closing. "This is our house now. Pack what you can carry and leave." "This is my house," I said. Each word had edges. "My name is on the deed. My work paid for it." "Not after today," he answered, stepping close enough that I could smell mint laced with stale smoke. "By tomorrow, liens will be filed. We'll negotiate. We have nothing to lose." I looked at my daughter, the child who fell asleep on my shoulder during thunderstorms, the teenager I taught to merge on the highway, the bride whose veil I pinned because her hands shook. She wouldn't meet my eyes. You planned this, I said softly. The organizing. Papers hidden among my taxes. Today. All of it. We planned to fix a disaster, Caleb said. Your disaster. I stood. Chair legs scraped. Pages skittered like pale fish across the table. Every movement hurt, but staying seated hurt worse. I'm going to change, I said. Then I'll be back. Caleb slid to block the hall. 5 minutes, he said. Backpack only. We'll handle the rest. Move, I told him. Something old in my tone, maybe the part that knows how to free a frozen bolt without snapping it, made him step aside. I walked down the hall and closed my bedroom door. For the first time all morning, the house sounded like itself. I peeled the shirt away from the burns. Angry red patches spread across my chest and upper ribs. Not deep, but mean. A clean cotton shirt felt cool as I eased it on careful around the tender spots. I pulled my suitcase from the closet and did what you do when a storm shows its shape. I packed 3 days of clothes, prescription bottles, wallet, keys, and from the bottom desk drawer, a thin folder they hadn't found the deed. The homeowner's policy, my birth certificate, the will I updated when Lena married. Proof matters when words don't. Through the wall, their voices buzzed, urgent, quick, dividing up a life that wasn't theirs. I checked the back hallway window where the screen never quite fit. Beyond the fence is Walter Green, my neighbor of 15 years, retired history teacher, coffee at 6, crossword at 7, a sane kitchen. I lifted the sash. October air hit heated skin and made me shiver. I eased the suitcase through, swung my legs after it, and dropped to the grass in my own yard like a trespasser. They expected me to shuffle out the front door and give up. They had no idea what I was about to do next. The October air hit my face like a warning, sharp, honest, and cold enough to wake up the parts of me that had gone numb. My shirt still clung to the burns across my chest, but I didn't stop walking until I crossed the yard to the old fence that separated my property from Walter Green's. Walter's kitchen light was already on, just like every morning for the past 15 years. Retired high school history teacher, widower, kind man. We'd talked baseball and neighborhood repairs more times than I could count. But I'd never shown up at his back door carrying a suitcase and looking like I'd crawled through my own life's wreckage. I knocked 3 quick raps that probably sounded steadier than I felt. He opened the door wearing a blue robe and a look of surprise that deepened into concern. "Joseph," he said, "what on earth happened to you?" I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Can I come in for a minute?" He stepped aside immediately. The warmth of his kitchen hit me bacon on the stove, coffee on the table. A normal morning. It almost hurt. "Sit down," he said. "You want something to eat? Coffee's fine." When the mug touched my hands, they were shaking. I set the suitcase beside the chair and stared at the steam for a few seconds before I spoke. "I've got a story to tell you," I said. "And it isn't good." Walter didn't interrupt once. That's the kind of listener he is. He just waited while I unraveled everything from the surprise envelope to the coffee pot explosion. When I finished, he stared at me for a long time. "They forged your name," he asked. "On every document," I said. "Dozens of pages. Perfect matches. And the debts? Not mine. Caleb's most likely. I've seen hints, betting apps, sports talk money vanishing from joint bills he swore he'd pay back." Walter leaned back slowly. "You've been robbed and assaulted, Joseph. That's not family trouble, that's a crime." I nodded. "I know. But I need proof. Something that'll hold up when they start twisting the story." He stood crossed to a drawer and came back with his reading glasses. "Let's start with what you already have." I unzipped the suitcase and pulled out the thin folder from my desk, my deed homeowner's insurance, last year's tax returns, and the photos I'd taken on my phone before I left the house, the forged papers spread across the kitchen table, the fake signatures, the red-circled total. Walter studied the images, frowning deeper with each swipe. "These signatures are identical," he said finally. "Too identical. Real signatures vary slightly. This looks like someone traced or digitally copied your name." He set the phone down and looked me squarely in the eye. "Joseph, you need to call the police." "I will," I said, though part of me still hesitated. I just needed to be sure first. She's still my daughter. Walter shook his head. "No. She stopped being your daughter the moment she burned you and tried to steal your home." He moved to the phone mounted on the wall. You want me to call? Or will you? I exhaled long and hard. I'll do it. The line clicked and a calm dispatcher's voice filled my ear. 911, what's your emergency? I told her. Slowly, carefully, every detail, the forged debt, the coffee attack, the threats, the fact that they were still inside my house. She kept her tone professional, asking clear questions. My address, their names, the injuries, whether there were weapons. Officers are being dispatched now, she said. Stay where you are, Mr. Turner. They'll arrive in 15 to 20 minutes. When I hung up, my hand was steadier than it had been all morning. Walter poured me another cup. You did the right thing, he said. I looked through his window toward my house. From this angle, it looked smaller, darker, the curtains still drawn. For the first time, I realized how little of it had actually felt like mine the past few years. 4 years ago, I said quietly, they came asking for help. Just 1 month, they said. Just until Caleb found work. I thought I was saving them. Walter folded his arms, waiting. 1 month turned into 4 years. He never kept a job more than 3 months. Always someone else's fault. Always the boss, the economy, bad luck. Lena defended him every time. What about money, Walter asked. They drained me slowly, I said. First the spare room, then food, then my savings $15,000 for a food truck that never made it a full season. When I complained, they called me controlling. Said I didn't understand how hard things were for young people. Walter shook his head. You were being manipulated. Classic pattern, emotional guilt, slow takeover, isolation. Did you notice they started moving your things? The garage, I said, remembering. He reorganized my tools without asking. Called it our space. When I got upset, Lena said I was overreacting. They kept doing it, changing where I keep the bills, paying some of them, on my behalf, collecting mail. It all looks helpful until it isn't. Outside, a faint breeze rustled the maple leaves. Walter's expression hardened. They were setting you up, creating a record that tied them to your finances so they could claim responsibility later. I've seen this kind of thing in elder fraud cases. I blinked. The phrase landed heavy. Elder fraud, I repeated. He nodded. Financial exploitation of a senior by family members? It's a felony in this state. We sat in silence for a moment. The only sound was the ticking of the clock above his stove. Then Walter spoke again, voice calm but firm. When the officers arrive, show them your injuries. Give them the photos. Let them collect those fake documents as evidence. Don't argue. Just tell the truth. I nodded. I can do that. You'll also need a lawyer, he added. I know someone good used to handle elder abuse cases pro bono. I almost smiled. You think of everything, don't you? He poured himself more coffee. That's what history teachers do. We learn from patterns. Through the window, I saw 2 black and white cruisers turn onto the street lights off but engines low. They rolled to a stop in front of my house. The sight brought a strange calm over me, like watching a storm finally move across the horizon after hours of thunder. They're here, I said quietly. Walter put a hand on my shoulder. You ready? As ready as I'll ever be. We walked out together across the dew-damp grass. The officers, one woman with gray-streaked hair, one younger man, met us at the fence. Mr. Turner, the woman said, extending her hand. I'm Officer Martinez. This is Officer Chen. We received your call. I shook her hand. They're still inside, I said. My daughter and son-in-law. Her eyes flicked to the faint red marks peeking from my collar. Are you injured? Hot coffee, I said simply. Burns on the chest. I'm all right. She nodded. We'll check that once we secure the scene. Stay with your neighbor, please. Officer Chen approached the front door and knocked firmly. Police, open up. Inside, there was movement, a crash, a hurried voice, then Lena's trembling reply. Just a minute. Martinez looked back at me. We'll handle this. I stayed by the fence beside Walter Hart, steady now. Whatever happened next would be in daylight, not shadows. For the first time that morning, I wasn't the one being cornered. This time, I was the one watching. From Walter's yard, I could see my own front door swing open. The October air carried every sound, the low murmur of the officers, the creak of old floorboards, the sharp tone of my daughter's voice. Officer Martinez stepped forward, first, her voice calm but firm. Lena Turner. We need to speak with you about an incident reported this morning. Lena's tone pitched high, shaky, but defensive. What incident? I don't know what you're talking about. Behind her, Caleb appeared, arms crossed, chin lifted in that same careless defiance he always wore when confronted. But when he saw the second officer, Chen, his face flickered with something less confident. Maybe fear, maybe calculation. Chen motioned him outside. Sir, we'll need to ask you a few questions separately. Walter and I stood at the fence as the officers took control. It was strange watching them move through my house, the place I'd built, maintained and loved for 30 years, now treated like a crime scene. Through the window, I could see Martinez leading Lena to the kitchen. Her hands twisted the hem of her sleeve, the same nervous habit she had as a child when she was caught lying about breaking a vase. Some things never change. Chen guided Caleb to the front lawn. We're just talking, he said, voice professional, though it carried the weight of authority that left no room for argument. Caleb straightened his posture, pretending confidence, but his eyes darted toward me a quick, narrow look that tried to turn guilt into blame. Martinez called out from inside, Mr. Turner, could you step forward, please? I crossed the yard slowly. Yes, ma'am. She pointed toward the table where papers were still spread out, the same forged documents they'd ambushed me with hours earlier. My half-eaten toast was still on the plate beside the dark stain on the floor where coffee had burned into the linoleum. Are these the items they showed you? Yes, I said. They claimed I owed $400,000 in gambling debts. Those aren't mine. Every signature is forged. Martinez nodded gloved hands, lifting a few sheets. You took photos before leaving. I did. They're on my phone. I pulled it from my pocket, opened the folder, and showed her each image, the documents, the signatures, the time-stamps. She took notes, then handed my phone back carefully. Thank you, she said. You've done exactly the right thing. From the living room, Chen's voice carried, Sir, please keep your hands visible. There was tension in his tone now. Lena's voice rose suddenly frantic. Wait, what are you doing? He didn't do anything. I moved closer, and through the doorway I saw it unfold. Chen was handcuffing Caleb, who was no longer pretending to be calm. He twisted, shouting, This is harassment. He's framing us. That old man is losing his mind. Martinez's voice cut through the noise like a blade. Mr. Turner, please stay back. We'll handle this. Lena turned on her eyes wide, breath sharp. You can't just arrest my husband. He's the victim here. My father's, he's confused. He's sick. Her words hit me like tiny shards. Even now she was playing the same card manipulation wrapped in false concern. I'd seen it before when she wanted money forgiveness or attention, but this time it didn't work. Martinez's tone stayed even. Ma'am, there's visible evidence of assault. We'll need you to come with us for questioning as well. I didn't mean to hurt him, Lena cried. It was an accident. It wasn't, I said quietly. You aimed. For the first time she looked at me, not with anger or guilt, but disbelief, as if she couldn't comprehend that I was standing there unbroken, calling the truth by its name. Martinez read Lena her rights while Chen secured Caleb. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you in court. Caleb shouted again, twisting against the cuffs. You'll regret this, old man. You hear me? I met his glare with something colder than anger. I already regret ever trusting you. The officers escorted them outside. Walter stood beside me on the porch, arms crossed, silent but steady. The morning sun hit the patrol cars, flashing blue and white against the quiet street. Neighbors were starting to appear, curious faces behind curtains, whispers over fences. Lena stumbled once on the walkway, caught herself, and turned back toward me. Her eyes were wet, her voice shaking. Dad, please. You can't let them do this. We're family. I shook my head. Family doesn't burn you to take your home. For a second, everything stopped, her breath, her tears, even the noise from the street. Then Chen guided her into the car. As the doors closed and the engine started, the world seemed painfully quiet again. I watched the patrol cars roll down the street until they turned the corner and disappeared. Walter exhaled beside me. It's over, he said. I shook my head slowly. No, it's just started. We went back inside. Martinez stayed behind for a few minutes to finish her report. She photographed the coffee burns on the floor, the papers, the bruises beginning to form where the heat had hit me hardest. She gave me a case number and a card for the prosecutor's office. "They'll contact you soon," she said. "This isn't just assault, Mr. Turner. It's fraud, attempted extortion, and elder abuse. The state takes that very seriously." The words hung in the air, elder abuse. I'd never thought of myself that way. But I nodded because facts don't care about pride. When she left, Walter poured 2 new mugs of coffee. He handed one to me. "Strange, isn't it," he said, "how something as simple as coffee can mean 2 completely different things depending on who's holding it." I nodded, tracing the rim of the mug with my thumb. "Yeah, this morning it was a weapon. Now it's peace." We sat there in silence, watching the light shift across the floor where the stain still glistened. "Joseph Walter said after a while you realize this could have gone worse. They could have taken everything. You caught it just in time." "I caught it too late," I said quietly, "but I'll fix it." That night, after the adrenaline wore off and the house finally went dark, I stayed awake in Walter's guest room. I stared at the ceiling, listening to the old clock in his hallway mark the seconds between what had been and what was coming. I knew one thing with perfect clarity: I wasn't going to be a victim waiting for the system to clean up my life. Tomorrow I would start gathering proof, every text, every document, every trace of their lies. I'd turn their plan inside out, piece by piece, until there was nothing left for them to hide behind. The revenge wouldn't be loud. It wouldn't be angry. It would be methodical. And it had already begun. 3 weeks passed. 3 long, deliberate weeks since the morning the police took my daughter and her husband away. The first few days, I barely spoke. I stayed at Walter Green's place, surrounded by the quiet steadiness of his house, the ticking of his clock, the rustle of his newspaper, the smell of brewed coffee that no longer burned my skin, but calmed it. He kept me grounded, and I needed that. By the end of the first week, I started moving again, walking to the mailbox, calling the insurance company, taking photos of everything I owned. Walter told me healing doesn't come from waiting. It comes from working. He was right. On the morning of the 21st day, Walter knocked on my door with a manila envelope tucked under his arm. "You might want to sit down for this," he said. I sat at his kitchen table, the same one that had heard every word of my story, and watched him spread a small pile of documents in front of me. "I've been keeping track of court filings," he said. "Public records. Thought you'd want to see what's happened since the arrests." At the top of the stack was a bankruptcy petition. Caleb Turner, bold letters across the header. Chapter 7, Liquidation of Assets. I scanned the first page. Total liabilities, $312,000 in gambling debt. Multiple credit agencies, dozens of lenders, even the IRS. I turned the page. He really filed. Walter nodded. 3 days after the arrest. Looks like he's trying to wipe out everything he owes. Another document followed a probation violation report. Caleb had been arrested once before for writing fraudulent checks. The details made my stomach twist. "He's a career manipulator," I muttered. I let him live under my roof. Walter's face was grim. "He's about to learn what that costs." We went through every paper. Each one was another nail in Caleb's coffin. A court summons for unpaid personal loans. A repossessed vehicle notice from Midwest Auto Finance. A termination letter from his old job citing loss of trust due to criminal charges. And then came the last page, an IRS audit notice. Walter tapped it with his finger. "This is the best part. Someone must have reported his gambling activity. The IRS claims he owes $40,000 in back taxes." I looked up at him. Someone reported it. He smiled just slightly. I might have pointed a few investigators in the right direction. Public information, of course. I chuckled, the first real laugh in weeks. "You should have been a detective, not a teacher." He leaned back, satisfied. "History and investigation aren't that different. You follow evidence until people's stories stop matching reality." I picked up one more sheet, a sentencing recommendation from the county prosecutor. Caleb was facing 8 months in jail for the combination of fraud, assault, and probation violation. It was poetic justice. The man who tried to steal my home couldn't even keep his own. But then Walter slid a smaller envelope across the table. "That's not all. There's news about Lena, too." My chest tightened. "Go on." He unfolded the papers. She pled guilty to misdemeanor assault. 18 months of probation, mandatory anger management, and a restraining order. She's not allowed within 100 yards of you. I stared at the words, not sure whether to feel relief or grief. "Is she in jail?" Not this time, Walter said. But she's close. She's staying at a women's shelter downtown. Lost her job 2 days after her arrest. The store didn't want her back once the local paper ran the story. I rubbed my forehead. And Caleb, living at a Salvation Army shelter, he said. Nobody will hire him. Every background check shows pending charges, and the loan sharks he owes money to, well, let's just say he's safer behind bars. For a long time, I didn't speak. I just looked at the papers, my daughter's name, her husband's name, the same names that used to appear on birthday cards, family Christmas lists, phone calls that started with "Hi, Dad." Walter broke the silence. She's tried to contact you, by the way. I blinked. What? 17 missed calls, 9 voicemails, the shelter's landline, different numbers each time. I haven't answered any, I said flatly. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out another envelope. She sent you this. Addressed to me, probably knowing you'd ignore it otherwise. I hesitated, then took it. The handwriting was unmistakable, small, neat, careful. I opened it slowly. It started simply. Dad, I don't expect you to forgive me, but please understand that I didn't mean to hurt you. Everything got out of control. I thought I was helping Caleb fix things. I was scared. He said if we didn't pay, they'd come after us. I just wanted to protect my family. There were 3 pages of apologies and explanations about pressure, fear, love, confusion. Words that might have worked years ago. I folded the letter back up and slipped it into the envelope again. She wants another chance, I said quietly. Walter studied me. What are you going to do? Nothing, I said. She made her choice. She crossed a line that doesn't uncross. He nodded, though there was sadness in his eyes. Sometimes doing nothing is the hardest decision. We sat for a while, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the sound of a clock ticking somewhere down the hall. Then Walter spoke again softly. She's not the same person anymore. I know I said, but neither am I. That afternoon, I returned to my house for the first time since the arrests. The police had cleared it, the evidence collected the mess left behind. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. It was quiet, empty. The coffee stain was still there, dark, stubborn, permanent. I stood over it for a while before deciding not to clean it. It wasn't just a mark. It was a reminder. I walked through each room, kitchen, living room, the small guest room where they used to sleep. Every space felt heavier but cleaner somehow, like the air itself had boundaries again. In the bedroom, I found an old photo of Lena at her college graduation cap, crooked, her smile, pure, real, uncorrupted by the man she would later marry. I didn't cry, but I felt something shift inside me. The next morning, Walter and I went to a diner downtown. The waitress poured coffee and smiled like nothing in the world was broken. Walter slid me a copy of the court schedule. Sentencing's next week, he said. Want to go? I thought for a moment, then nodded. Yes. I need to see it. Not for revenge, just for closure. He raised his cup, to justice. I lifted mine, to peace. As we clinked mugs, I realized how strange it felt to smile again. Not because everything was fixed, but because I'd survived it. The man who tried to take my life apart was losing his freedom. The daughter who betrayed me was learning what consequences feel like. And me, I was finally starting to feel whole again. But I also knew something else. Forgiveness and revenge weren't opposites. Sometimes the best revenge is living well enough that the people who tried to destroy you have to watch you rebuild without them. That would be my justice. And it had only just begun. 1 month later, the house was mine again, not just on paper, but in spirit. The locksmith had changed every lock. The walls were painted fresh. The air felt lighter, almost grateful to be free of shouting and lies. I sat at the same kitchen table where everything had started. The coffee stain was gone, now replaced by a faint patch of lighter linoleum. A scar like mine. A reminder not of pain, but of survival. Across the table, Walter Green slid an envelope toward me. Final court results, he said, with that quiet satisfaction he always carried. I opened it. Caleb Turner sentenced to 8 months in county jail. Lena Turner, 2 years probation, mandatory restitution payments of $15,000. Every month for 5 years, my daughter would send me a check not out of love, but out of law. A debt she created, now paying it back penny by penny. Walter poured us coffee. To justice, he said. I raised my cup. To peace. Outside, the maple leaves shifted in the wind. The garden was coming back to life, rows of flowers pushing through fresh soil. The same way I was. My phone buzzed a message from an old colleague at Midwest Food and Travel. "Joseph, ready to get back to work. Portland's waiting." I smiled. "Yeah," I said to no one in particular. "I'm ready." I closed the envelope, set it beside the mug, and looked around my quiet, honest kitchen. The same place where betrayal began, now a place of calm, of purpose, of proof that I had taken back everything they tried to steal. Justice wasn't loud. It was steady. And for the first time in years, I could finally breathe in peace. Thank you for listening to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also, leave a comment below to share your thoughts on what happened. Take care.